Many clients walk into a family law practice believing that a meticulously drafted prenuptial agreement offers absolute asset protection. In England and Wales, prenuptial agreements lack the strict enforceability of commercial contracts. The ultimate authority governing financial remedies upon divorce or dissolution remains the Matrimonial Causes Act 1973. Private agreements between spouses are treated by the court as just one of all the circumstances of the case, absorbed into the existing legal framework. Specifically, judges rely on Section 25, a discretionary matrix designed to divide assets based on financial realities that often outweigh a private contract. This creates an immediate problem for the practitioner tasked with advising a client on whether their agreement will actually be upheld. The agreement's value rests on its ability to survive the family court's overarching test for fairness. The legislative mandate behind Section 25 grants the court discretion to achieve a fair financial outcome. To reach that outcome, judges evaluate specific statutory factors, including both parties' income, their earning capacity, and the standard of living they enjoyed during the marriage. Historically, this broad discretion meant that if a prenuptial agreement clashed with a judge's view of a fair distribution, it carried little weight. Because Parliament never amended the statute to make prenuptial agreements strictly binding, the legal profession required the Supreme Court to clarify exactly how this circumstance should be weighted. The system required a standardized framework to ensure that rulings on premarital contracts were predictable and consistent across different courts. Effective advice requires an understanding that modern case law has built a specific filtering mechanism inside Section 25 to evaluate these agreements. That framework arrived with the 2010 Supreme Court decision in Radmacher v. Granatino. The case involved a husband attempting to bypass an agreement he had previously signed, seeking a larger share of his wealthy wife's assets. The Supreme Court ruled that while no automatic presumption exists in favor of enforcement, the guiding principle must be fairness in light of all the circumstances. To define what is fair, the court established a sequential three-part test. You can visualize this test as a series of filters. An agreement must pass through every stage before it can be converted into a formal court order. If the document fails at any individual layer, the court will likely disregard its terms. The Radmacher decision left the underlying statute intact, offering a specific formula for predicting when a judge will respect the party's autonomy. The first filter evaluates party autonomy and procedural fairness. The court asks whether both individuals truly understood what they were signing. Drawing from cases like K versus K, the baseline requirement is that the agreement was entered into freely, without duress, and with a full comprehension of its financial implications. In practice, this requires both parties to provide full financial disclosure and obtain independent legal advice before the document is finalized. The 2013 case of BN versus MA demonstrates an agreement successfully passing this first hurdle. The couple signed their agreement 15 months prior to the hearing, and the document included explicit warnings not to sign if they were unwilling to be bound by its terms. The judge upheld the agreement because this level of procedural rigor proved the parties signed with genuine autonomy. A procedurally flawless execution clears this first barrier, though adult autonomy alone cannot override statutory obligations to dependents. This leads to the second, more rigid statutory barrier, Section 25, subsection 1. This section mandates that the welfare of any minor child of the family is the court's first and paramount consideration. A prenuptial agreement cannot legally prejudice a child's reasonable requirements. If enforcing a contract would leave the primary carer unable to adequately house or financially support the children, the court will strike those provisions down. Because of this, the birth of children long after an agreement is signed can radically alter its viability at this filter. Obligations to children are absolute. The family court will pierce any private contract to protect a minor's welfare. The final filter is basic needs. This overarching consideration can override even a procedurally sound agreement. While need is relative to the standard of living during the marriage, the court will not permit one party to be left destitute. The 2018 case of Brack versus Brack serves as the ultimate cautionary tale for ignoring this statutory requirement. Over a 14-year marriage, a couple amassed £11 million in assets. They signed 3 separate prenuptial contracts, attempting to ring-fence all wealth and deny any future maintenance. These agreements fundamentally failed to meet the wife's basic financial needs following a long marriage. The judge accorded the agreements no determining weight, ruling that their enforcement would be grossly unfair to the wife. The court set the agreements aside and applied the standard S25 factors from scratch. The court defends party autonomy when dividing non-matrimonial property or surplus wealth, but that autonomy evaporates once basic needs are compromised. Viewed in its entirety, this legal matrix allows practitioners to evaluate the strength of any given case. A prenuptial agreement serves as a highly persuasive starting point, rather than a guaranteed finish line. Agreements that satisfy the tests for autonomy, child welfare, and basic needs will likely be upheld, as seen in BN versus MA. Conversely, those that fail these tests divert the case back to a standard Section 25 application, as demonstrated in BRAC. Ultimately, the duration of the marriage and changing financial realities determine whether an old agreement remains a fair reflection of current circumstances. This emphasizes the practitioner's strategic role during the initial drafting phase. Attempting to ring-fence every asset while ignoring the inevitable creation of needs over time is a fast track to having an agreement disregarded by a judge. Resilient agreements succeed by aligning with the court's definition of fairness, avoiding the trap of attempting to defeat the court's jurisdiction entirely.